I recently set up a 6-foot Waterbox Peninsula tank in my house. I documented the process of moving this tank, of trying to scape it myself a few times, and then finally having Jason from Australian Biotopes come over and show me how to actually create this riverbank scape that I always wanted. Jason set this up about 2 months ago and did an incredible job. In this video, I want to give you an update on how this tank has fared the past 8 weeks, show you the fish that I've got in there at the moment, and also show you how I maintain this tank and a little bit about the filtration as well. If you're enjoying my content, I would absolutely love for you to subscribe to my channel and click that little bell notification so you don't miss when I do a new upload. Without further ado, let's get into the video. This tank here is almost a biotope. It's very, very close. What it is it's based off the rivers and the creeks here in Australia, especially around southeast Australia, which is where I'm from. And it is meant to represent or look like a riverbank in one of those creeks with all of the big boulders, like the nice smooth ones like what you would see in a river. We've got a nice big piece of driftwood, not too many plants, just some of the plants like the val and the Luidia that are on the end there, and then just letting some moss and some algae grow on the logs. Then we also just have some different grades of gravel in here. So we've got some big grades of gravel and then finer sand at the end to also look like what it would in a river, where the big bits of gravel get caught behind rocks and then the finer bits end up further down the stream. So this scape here was put together by Jason from Australian Biotopes. He came over and he created this and showed me along the way. If you're interested in seeing that step by step, I'll link the video in the bio of this one as well. But basically what he did was he got things like crates and he used that to fill in with sand and then stack rocks on top of that so we could create that nice big cliff face or riverbank area at the end there. So it's been about 2 months now. This was put together in December 2022 and I'm making this February 2023. So pretty much exactly 8 weeks since this got set up, and it's growing in really, really nicely. I'm very happy with it. I have had to do barely any maintenance on this. I've just been doing a water change once a week and that's it. The plants, I haven't bothered to fertilize them or anything like that, and they've all been growing beautifully. Jason did just put some fertilizer and some aqua soil in when he first put them in, but that was it. And then more recently, we're also getting this really nice algae or moss type of covering, this green layer on the rock as well. On the log, sorry, and also on some of the rocks as well. We do have some cyanobacteria, which is that really dark green stuff, which isn't so nice, but there's not too much of that. In terms of this algae type of moss stuff that's on the log, that started growing in about 2 weeks ago, I would say, and then it's really picked up during those couple of weeks as well to cover that log. And that looks beautiful because it makes it look a lot more natural having that in here. Then in terms of the rocks, we've just got some big boulders on that end and then some smaller ones throughout here. We did originally put a couple of plants down this end, but I have a leperonis in here, which isn't a native fish. That one's kind of a bit of an oddball fish, and that one ate a lot of the plants, so they didn't do so well. But I don't mind too much because I have a pretty busy lifestyle, so I needed something that would be low maintenance, and I do prefer hardscapes too. I'm not really much of a plant person, so just having these really simple, easy to care for plants like the val and the Luidia that I have to do pretty much nothing to get them to grow, and some of the algae is exactly what I love. That's what I want out of a tank. And I do like driftwood as well, but not too much of it. So I'm very, very happy with the amount of rock to driftwood plant ratio that we've got going on in here. In terms of the fish that we've got in here, we have predominantly rainbow fish in here. Rainbow fish are a very colourful type of fish, and there's lots of different subtypes, so different species that look very, very different. And you get some in Australia, but then you also get ones in other countries too, like New Guinea. And I always say Malaysia, but it's not Malaysia. New Guinea and Madagascar, I think, are pretty much the main other places that you tend to find these fish. The ones that I have in this tank are Australian native ones. So I actually went and caught most of the fish that I've got in this tank. We're allowed to catch them within limits, so you can have 20 wild caught ones of each species at a time in your tank. And so I have caught most of these ones called crimson spotted rainbow fish, which are the main ones in here. So they're the biggest ones, and you'll see the males are quite large and they've got a big black dark stripe that runs down them, as well as some blue, some yellow, some red. Then the females are similar looking, they're just a little bit more slender and not quite as vibrant. I got a couple of those ones from Gallery Aquatica, and then all of the other ones I went and sourced locally, like caught them from the creeks locally. I got these ones called blue eyes. So you can get honey blue eyes, which are a lot more yellow, but they're endangered here, so we're not allowed to take them from the wild. But from Brisbane here, I got some of these ones that are just the normal blue eyes as well, that are in the tank, and they do have a little bit of yellow on them, but they've got these beautiful blue eyes that show up really nicely on camera, which is nice. I have only got 2 of those ones, I think. The other rainbow fish that you will see in here as well, one's called ornate rainbow fish, or rads. They're the guys that are a little bit more slender and they're kind of half red. You do get them in blue as well. These ones have a little bit of a tinge of blue on their head, but when we went up to Tin Can Bay, we found some red ones and some blue ones in the wild there. These ones are not wild caught. These ones were caught by Jason a little bit further up north. You don't tend to get the ones that are so red around here in Brisbane, but he then bred his ones and he purposefully caught the most red ones that he could find. So you often, or don't always see them this red in the wild, but then these are the babies or the offspring of the wild caught ones that he got. Then what we also caught at the creek were some things that aren't rainbow fish. So I've got some glassfish in here. These are the guys that are kind of like an olive colour, and then they're a little bit see-through as well, which is why they're called glassfish. And they like to live in schools, so I've got a fair few of them in there. Then I also have these things called gudgeons too, which are a type of fish that tends to sit more down the bottom or sit amongst the plants and be quite still, and then it just kind of eats like the eggs and stuff that the rainbow fish lay, and eats food from the bottom of the tank. And I've got a few different types of them. There's different ones that you get, like there's firetail gudgeons around here. I think they're called emperor gudgeons as well that you get. I'm not 100% sure of the type I have, but some of them do get quite big. So if they get too big, I might have to remove some of them. I also have one single smelt that we caught one time too, which is quite nice. I really like the black and the yellow line that one's got across it. Then I also have some blue rainbow fish. These ones were not caught from here, so they don't live in the creeks around here. I bought those guys from Tech Den. I'm not sure of their exact name, but I'll put it up on screen. Now, I just spotted down there as well on that end. I can see my whiptail catfish as well, which is also not a native fish. That is just one that I think I got from Nick a while ago, but it's grown beautifully. It is such a nice whiptail catfish. I really love the kind of marble colours that it's got on it. Then I've got a little leperonus that you can see peeking through the driftwood here. Also not a native fish. That was one that I originally bought when I first set this tank up, so he's still in there. They are jumpers, so unfortunately I lost the other one, but I do have lids on this tank now. A lot of these fish can be jumpy, especially if they're startled too. Then there are some bristlenose catfish in here too. So I've got L333 ones, well, just one L333, and that one is black and white and stripy. Then I have an L397 from Adrian, which is also stripy, but it's more of an orange colour, kind of like a tiger looking one. Then I've also got a cerebral pleco in here as well, which is really beautiful. I love that one. It's black with little white snowballs or little circles on it, which is beautiful. Those guys tend to only come out at night time though. You don't see them an awful lot. The things that the bristlenose plecos do though is they, especially these types I have, is they tend to like to eat the driftwood. So they create this stuff called mulm, which you'll see sometimes sitting on the substrate. It's just little bits of driftwood that they've torn up, or I think that they've pooed out maybe, not too sure. But you do tend to get that with those types of plecos. Worth a mention is my spiny eel as well. That's another one, not native again, but you will see it come out every now and then. I was lucky enough to catch a little bit of footage of it today, but sometimes he'll only come out like once every couple of weeks. So he's a little bit more of one that's a rare sighting. The reason being is that they love to dig in substrate and to hide under that a lot of the time. And eels don't need to eat that much. They can get away really with eating like once a week. These ones can anyway. And because I've got so many places to hide and that huge mound of basically all substrate up that end, it's just having a great time hiding in there. The only thing though that has been a bit of an issue, I think, is I've seen some of his scales be a little bit sore. I think that it's not great having big pieces of gravel with them because they can scratch themselves up a little bit, but I'm hoping that he'll be okay. then it should just be something that he'll heal from, and hopefully he starts to get his little tunnels established and stuff and doesn't scrape himself too much in the future. The other thing that Jason did too was he just put some twigs and stuff in between the rocks to give it that really nice natural look, like what you would see in the river, because they like to hang out, the rainbow fish, like underneath where the embankment is, where there's lots of roots and stuff going in. And then these guys do like to breed in the plants as well, so they like to have a little bit of cover for doing that. And then they also like the open water for swimming in as well, perfect for them. They do like water that is just a neutral pH. They like water that is nice and oxygenated as well. They don't require a high flow, but I find that they seem to enjoy it. Not anything too crazy, but sometimes they'll just like to swim against the flow. So what I'm going to show you now is how I do a water change on here, and show you a little bit of the sump filtration and how that works, because I had only ever used canister filters before I got this tank. So I was new to sumps, and I get that they can be a little bit confusing when you're thinking about how to do a water change using one of them, but it's really not. And so I'm going to show you exactly how that works. The way the sump works is all of the water gets high enough that it starts to overflow. And then when it overflows, it goes down these grates here, and it goes down here through the pipe. Then there's actually two pipes that it runs through. So it's got a main pipe and a secondary one, and that's just to help so you can adjust it so there's not air and noise and stuff when it's coming through. Then it runs into here, and all I've got in here is I've got two little baskets here, and I put some filter floss in there that I change like once every 2 weeks when it gets dirty. Then it runs through that really fine filter floss into this little section here, which is kind of like a freshwater refugium that I've tried to create. And so I've just got a bunch of floating plants that I have in here. These were doing really well. I don't know what happened to them. I have been leaving the light on 24/7, so I may just need to fix that. But they were growing really well, which is why I didn't change the light. But now just recently, the past like 3 weeks or so, they've started to die off a bit. But I've got these plants in here. I have some ghost shrimp as well that live in this little section here. I might give them some food so I can bring them out and show you. And then I've just got some pothos that I've just popped in there, and that's been climbing along the top here, which is quite interesting, and then back down to try and get to the light. If we come around the other side, what we've got is some pothos also growing in here. Mechanical filtration here. So I've got these Dimax ones, and then I've got a bag of some media air bubbles that I put in here too, because rainbow fish just in particular really like having a lot of oxygen in the water. And then I've got my heater in this part. Then it runs through here to there, which is the pump, which then pumps the water back up into the tank, and it comes out on the sides just here. So it's got one of these on each side that then shoot the water back out into the tank. The only other thing that's quite important that's in here too is this little thing here is a sensor, and what this does is if the water starts to evaporate and it gets below here, then that sends a little signal to a pump that I have in here, and I always have a reservoir of water in here. This little pump here then pumps the water through there and into here to fill it back up. And what that does is that just makes sure that we're not going to ever run dry for our pump from evaporation. This tops up probably like every day, I would say, and I have to fill this back up, I would say probably like every 2-3 weeks. It is summer here at the moment, so it's quite hot. What you're going to see here is I'm going to turn the pump off here. So this one here, that's going to turn off, and it's going to stop flowing. Then now what's going to happen is it's not pushing water out anymore, so the tank is going to drain until it is below that overflow, so the water can't go in any further. But what's going to happen as that drains is you're going to see that the volume in the sump is going to raise, and we do not want that to overflow. So you always want your sump to be low enough so that your tank can be turned off and not overflow. I normally just keep my eye on it just in case I have to quickly turn the pump back on, but generally it is fine. So we can see that we're all in the clear, we have not overflowed. So now what we're free to do is treat this just like any normal tank with canister filters. It's basically the equivalent of turning off your canister filters. Now what we can do is we can siphon out all of the debris and the fish waste and stuff that is sitting on the bottom. Then we can pump as much water out as we like. And when we fill the tank back up, we're just going to fill it back up to where it is here. So where it's just below the grates, then we'll turn the pump back on and it'll go back to normal. So even though it can be a little bit intimidating at first having a sump, once you get used to it and you really see how it all works and everything, and you just know the things that you have to be careful of, then it is really simple and easy to use. So I'm going to take off these lids. These are custom made lids from NVS Aquariums that I have on both of my tanks. So I've got them on this one and then on my African cichlid tank, which I also have a bunch of videos on too if you're interested in that tank. I do have to just move the light just to the side a little bit because there's a little lip on the lid that needs to be able to move, but that's fine, and just be careful you don't do that. So that actually reminds me too, I've got some shades on my lights too, just to help with the glare. So those don't come with the mini lights, you have to buy them separately. Alrighty, so for cleaning out all of the waste and the debris, what I do is I have a siphon, and this siphon just runs straight into here where I've got a laundry sink. This is my garden hose for filling the tank up, but this is the siphon here. All I'm going to do is I'm going to pop this main end into the tank, then I'm going to suck on the end that's in the sink, and that's going to get the siphon started, and we're going to use this to get all of the waste out. And so you just want to get the air out of this tube before you suck on the end, like that. Make sure that it's not kinked anywhere, because that is a problem if it's kinked. Then we just suck on the end here, like that. And I like having a clear hose for this because then you can see where the water's at and if it's gotten stuck anywhere. But if everything goes smoothly, it should run into the sink like that. Then now we've got a nice long siphon that we can work with. You'll see that there can be a lot of waste in this tank. Now, some of it is just mulm from the bristlenose catfish eating the wood and tearing it apart, but also a lot of it is fish poo and old food and stuff too. And then what I do for my African cichlid tank is I have a wave maker and I use that to blast in between all of the substrate because there can be waste and stuff that gets caught in here. But I haven't done that for this tank yet. I've just been leaving that. Hopefully it'll be okay, I'll see. What I try and do is I feed the fish down this end and they spend a lot of their time down this end too. So I'm hoping that most of the waste is down here and is getting pushed as well because of the current going that way. Siphoning is effective at getting the waste out, but it's also a very, very slow process when it comes to actually removing the volume of water in such a large tank like this. This would be fine for small tanks, but I don't really want to sit around for like 2 hours and wait for this to drain the tank. So what I do is I also have a pump that I use. And so this just lives under here in the African cichlid tank. It is just a pond pump. So you can get these from hardware stores. I got this one from Bunnings. So Aqua Pro AP3000 water feature pump. What we'll do is let's plug this in and we'll get this pumping. And what I normally do is I get the water pumping while I siphon it out and do these two things at the same time. So a little while I did a video on setting up this irrigation system in my backyard. And all I do is, this used to be hanging up and then it fell off, is I have a hose that just stays out here and it stays connected to this irrigation system which runs through the plants, and then it's got some little spray bars to spray the garden so I can use my fish tank water to give the garden a good water. And all I do is I just bring this inside, again just make sure it's not kinked or anything, just pop it on our pump as so. This is a nice and heavy hose, so it helps to hold it down. It's 19mm hose. Pop my pump in, on, and that is now pumping. You'll see that it's just coming out here. This is the main pipe, and then there is a little drain just under there to take the excess water. But depending on how quickly you want to drain the tank, if we adjust this and close this off a little bit, then what will start to happen is the water builds up some pressure and it'll start to come through into our garden through these spray bars and give our garden a good spray. Because it is set up a little bit differently to my African cichlid tank, my water changes are a bit different. So this tank here has no plants except for algae, and it's heavily overstocked with quite large fish. So that means that when I do a water change to help keep nitrates down, I like to do about an 80% water change, and I do that once a week. For this tank here, because it's still newly set up, I still like to do a water change once a week, but I will be able to dial that back eventually to more like once every 2-3 weeks, probably every 2 weeks. I would say I'll do once the plants really start to get established and we've got a good colony of bacteria and everything and the fish are doing well. Because I have more plants in here and kind of smaller fish as well, I have a little bit more leeway. I'm not going to build up nitrates as quickly in this tank, plus having all of the plants in the sump and stuff too. So at the moment for this one, I just do a 50% water change once a week, and I just make sure I siphon out as much waste as I possibly can. And as the tank's growing and I'll see how it's going with the balance and everything, I'll probably adjust that over time. But that's a really good example for how you can have two tanks that are pretty much the same size, but depending on what you've got in there, how many fish, how many plants, it's going to make a difference as to how often you have to do water changes and how large of a water change you want to do as well. The other thing that I will do as the tank drains is I'll keep going around and siphoning out waste, but I'll use this here. So this is called a flipper. And it's called a flipper because it's got two sides that you can flip between. I have no skill at doing this. I don't understand how people do it. But basically it's got a razor on one side for getting off really difficult to clean algae. And then on the other side, it has a softer one for cleaning off more like soft algae or just that green algae that you get. But I'll just go around with this and get rid of the algae and stuff. And the razor one is quite good for getting closer to the gravel and getting algae that is a little bit more stubborn as well, I find. So as you can see, now with the pump on there, it's draining much, much faster, and we're going to get to halfway pretty quickly. I accidentally removed a little bit more than what I normally would, but all you do is get a towel ready, because it's going to be messy. Just grab the pump out, and it's good to put the pump on a towel because it will seep a little bit of water for a while. But pop that down there, then just take the hose out and put the hose back outside, and it's as simple as that. It's so easy. Now all we need to do is get the hose from the sink and start filling this back up, and that'll be our water change all done. We're just going to go over to the sink now, and I'm grabbing this just general garden hose that I have, and I have a tap adapter so that it connects to here, and you can just get these from hardware stores too. I just got this one from Bunnings, and you just clip it onto your tap then your hose so that the water can run straight out of your hose. And let's just pop this into our tank. I just balance it in here and it doesn't generally fall out. I think my hose has fallen out once before when I've been filling a tank, and it was the African cichlid tank. I just use the Prime water dechlorinator, and I've just put 2 capfuls of that where the water is coming out. And I just start slow. Make sure it's holding. Oops. See, sometimes it moves around a bit like that. So you can just move it around like that so it's in a bit of a more suitable position. And the fish always really enjoy when this is getting filled back up because they like to swim in the new water, and then they like all the old like food and stuff that gets kicked up too. So they have a great old time with that. We'll do a little bit of schooling. And because it's summer here, I just use cold water to refill because that's warm enough, I find. But in winter, I will put the temp on a warmer temperature straight from the tap as well. And so let's just wait for that to fill up. Alrighty, so here we go. We are just making our way almost into the intake, and I think I'm about to see it be able to go. And you can see how we don't have a lot of room to work with in our sump, so we definitely don't want to fill it up too far. Yep, it's okay, you can see it's going down there, so quickly turn our tap off, like that. Right. And then once the tap's off, there's no rush to get the hose out or anything, but now we know that we're at the level that we need to be. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn our pump on. So like that, this is going to light up and go to the level that we have it set on. So we only have it set on just under 50% for the actual like strength that it can run at. And you'll see that the water starts to pump into there, and that's going to then take it up high enough so that it's always going down the intake like that. Our tank will fill up a little bit higher because the pump's going to pump some of that water out faster than what it can run down just initially. And that is how you do a water change on a tank like this. The water change is finished, it's all filled back up, the lids are back on and everything, and we've got healthy, happy fish in here. I really hope that you enjoyed seeing this video and a little bit of an update on this tank. Let me know what you think about it and how it's been progressing. Also, a big thank you to Jason, who gave me the tripod that I'm using right now to film, so I've finally been able to do some proper videoing and filming with this new camera that I've got. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like. I also upload a lot of videos that are more vlog style ones, like going out to aquarium stores, going out and actually seeing these fish in the wild and catching them too. So definitely check out my channel and some of the playlists that I've got and the collaborations and everything. And I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye!